education, hence talking to you guys today, endurance sports specifically, and also eating disorders and disordered eating. I've got a variety of different work that I've done, most of which Joe's mentioned, but for those, the other bits, so I worked for Science and Sport for a few years as well, so I'm quite familiar with them. I've done some projects with Swim with Jazz, if any of you are swimming fans and know of Jazz Carlin, and a few other projects, and worked for the Eating Disorders Charity for the UK. And yeah, I'm not going to repeat what Joe said, but my current main role is the nutritionist for the World Tour men's team for DSM Firmenich Post-NL. So yeah, I'm very much in the world of pro cycling at the moment, which is super cool and exciting, but that's enough about me. So what are we going to look at today? So to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what you guys are already covering with nutrition. I hadn't really been given much background, so I kind of just had to go a bit out on a limb and put a bit of a kind of structure together around like racing, fueling, and also training, and just a general kind of what I thought. I was like, what do I want to put in an hour and for you guys to take away? And this is what I came up with. So we're going to look at what I mean by the priority pyramid and thinking about energy balance and energy intake. We're going to look at fueling in general for races, stage events, and think about training as well, all kind of in one combination there. That means why carbohydrates are king. That kind of goes in with that from the second point there. And then I'm going to introduce you to the 4 R's of recovery and how we can think about optimizing our recovery day to day. So you're actually adapting to the training that you're putting in, and hopefully then going to progress and get stronger and better as athletes. So first of all, when considering nutrition, let's start by looking at what I like to call the priority pyramid. Now, at the base of the pyramid, this is your most important. So this should be your total energy intake. And what I mean by this is actually how much energy you're taking in day to day, and is it matching the training demand? This might be, obviously, you might have cycling and strength training, you might do other sports as cross training, and day to day, you also might be pretty active. It's also thinking about just your general movement. Like, do you have a dog? Are you walking the dog a lot day to day as well? And how active are you when moving around? Or do you sit down at a desk a lot and study? And yeah, that kind of thing. So it's thinking about all of your energy intake and actually making sure that you're fueling everything that your body needs to run. So that should be your foundation, getting that right. Next up, the most important thing to consider in nutrition is your macronutrient and micronutrient intake. So your macronutrients, macro meaning we need it in large amounts, your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then also your micronutrients, so your key vitamin and minerals. And what I tend to say to most people, instead of stressing about each individual vitamin and mineral, like, oh, I need vitamin C from here or vitamin D from there, in general, if you are consuming a balanced diet with lots of colour and variety, then you are probably hitting most of your micronutrient goals. If you're not, then yes, it might be worth looking at supplementation or in other reasons, like, for example, vitamin D in winter when we don't get a lot from sunlight. But for the majority of it, eat plenty of colour, plenty of variety, and you'll probably hit your micro goals. Next up to think about is meal frequency and timing. So how can we actually optimize when we're consuming our food to actually fuel our bodies best for training and recovery? And are there better ways to do it? And then last but not least, although sounds a bit weird at being at the top of the pyramid, it doesn't mean it's the most important. It's actually like the last layer as such, is supplementation. So your supplements are designed to be a supplement to your diet and not something to be completely reliant on. And we should try and build our nutritional intake from the ground up. So the bottom of that pyramid all the way up to the top. And so supplements can be necessary, but not always. So that's what I want you to think about in general when planning your nutrition, this kind of hierarchy. So why is that energy intake at the bottom? Why is it so important, and why does it matter? So hopefully most of you will be like this little aqua color. He's like a turquoisey, greeny blue, depending on what color your screen comes up as. But he is pretty happy there and he's very well balanced. And the reason they are so happy is because they've got matched energy intake with the energy demand. So this kind of, again, aqua turquoisey color is representing that they've got enough energy for their body to actually function. So for the brain needs energy, for your cardiovascular system to work, for even digestion, all of that needs energy. And there's plenty of energy available. So they're pretty happy. They've also got plenty of energy to match their training load. So this is where they are meeting the energy demands and they're in this happy balance. But unfortunately, sometimes the scales can tip in one way or the other, and it can have some negative effects. So there's two ways it can tip. So if we look on the left-hand side first, where it's a little bit unhappy now, as you can see, we've got reduced energy available for life processes. So it means that the energy for actually the bodily systems isn't as great. But the energy demand for training load is still there. And this is because they're not eating enough. So insufficient energy intake. So not eating what they need to. And you might be thinking, well, why has the energy demand for training load kind of stayed the same? Why am I giving enough energy to that and slowing down my bodily processes? And that's because naturally your body's instinct is actually to fuel training. So a good way, a bit of an extreme example, but to give you an idea, if you were running away from a bear, and you're running fast and you need to run as fast as you can, where is your body going to put all its energy? Running or digesting a meal you had earlier? It's going to direct all the energy to running away from the bear. And for some reason, the body does prioritize movement energy. So it does slow down things internally if it doesn't have enough fuel. So again, extreme example, but hopefully it gives you an idea. We then have the other side where, again, still unhappy, but on the right-hand side, where essentially the training load is just too excessive and the energy intake hasn't been thought about. So on the left, we're thinking about not eating enough. And on the right, we're thinking about overtraining and not compensating for our food. And ideally, we want to be in this middle column where we've got energy balance correct. So why is it so important to get this right? A few different reasons. I think I've got 6 on these slides. So maintaining body weight, obviously, unless you are wanting to make body composition goals, ideally we want to try and maintain at the weight that we're at. So if you're in a negative energy balance, you're going to lose weight. And if you're in a positive energy balance, you might gain weight, both which can impact performance negative or positively, depending on your individual circumstances. And occasionally you might try and tip these scales slightly either way for a different energy output, but usually that's going to be supervised. And I'm thinking more about purposefully making sure that our energy intake matches. It's also going to help you maximize your training effects. So providing enough fuel is going to help you get the most out of your training and also your recovery. So you're actually going to adapt to the training stimulus, because if you're doing all the training and then not fueling, well, you're not really going to get very far. So can also help with injury prevention. So by achieving this like balance in the middle, it's going to reduce your risk of being over fatigued at training. It's going to reduce your risk of injury, again, support performance and recovery. Can help your body actually work in the fact that it's going to help all the bodily functions take place. So especially hormonal regulation is one of the main things that can be affected when this energy balance is out, and that's both in males and females. I think when we say hormones, we automatically think females more, but affects both. And also a stronger immune system, because this energy balance and hitting all your micro and macro goals is going to help make your immune system as efficient as it can be. And finally, peak performance. So with the right energy balance, you'll have the energy to actually adapt and achieve your goals. It's like having a full tank of fuel in your car. You're going to be ready to go, and you're going to be able to train harder and compete better. So what are the signs of low energy availability? I'm going to take those back off because I double clicked by mistake. And so heads up if you've already got some, because you'll be ahead here. But some people who have low energy availability, which is the term for being on either side of that scale, you might not show any like clinical signs, but you might have some like initial effects. So what could you look out for? Does anyone have any ideas of symptoms that might suggest that there may be in a bit of a low energy state? If you can either speak up or put it in the chat box, whichever you prefer.
Could you
Come
just
on, don't be
say,
shy, guys.
just feeling tired, feeling sleepy?
Yeah, general fatigue, that's a good one. Any others? Oh, someone's put struggling to wake up in the mornings. Yeah, tiredness. Any other signs? It's okay if not, because that means you're going to take something away from it. So cool. Well, if anyone else has any other ideas, feel free to put them in the meeting chat. But low mood and irritability, I mean, you've probably all been hangry. We all know that term of being hungry and angry at the same time. Technically, that's irritability because you're not feeling right, when you need it. But low mood as well. You might have poor sleep quality, which could be related to what Charlie said, saying struggling to wake up in the mornings, not actually feeling like you're getting enough sleep. You might plateau in training. So by that, I mean just like stay quite stable for a while. You might have quite a few illnesses and injury and not feel like you're recovering correctly. Persistent fatigue, which Luke came up with as well. You also, recovery is on there again, but increased perception of effort. So this is to do with like how you're actually feeling in training. Low libido, so actually how you're feeling day to day as well, can be affected with hormonal changes. You can have digestive issues too. That can also be affected. And also in females, disrupted or an absent menstrual cycle. And that's a key one to look out with in females. One thing I like to think about it is an example of low energy availability is phones going into low battery mode. You've probably all seen it. I know iPhone definitely does, but I think a lot of phones have low battery mode. When you put it on, you can't really tell your phone's in low battery mode. It seems to function as normal, but what's happened is in the background, a lot of things are slowed down that we don't really know about. And that's kind of what's happening to our body in low energy availability as well. So we might miss a lot of these things, but this is almost the ascent. It's the equivalent of you being in low battery mode. That's low energy availability. A lot of the time, this will happen unintentionally, but hopefully helping you guys in raising an awareness. So moving on from energy balance, let's think about how we can fuel training and fuel races as well. So we're going to start off with one of my favorite things in the world, carbohydrates. So carbs are king. I'm always going to say that a lot probably, but carbohydrates are a macronutrient, meaning we need it in large amounts in our diet. So does anyone know roughly what % of their diet is meant to be carbohydrates? Any idea day to day? What do we think? Any guesses? No, everyone's quite quiet. It's around 45 to, oh, someone's put 60, 45 to 65%. So well done, Amelia. You bang on in that range there. Of your daily calories should come from carbohydrate, and that's going to increase and decrease depending on the training load, and because that's more based around the general population as well. So yours might be higher than that some days. But then you should have about 20 to 35% from fats and all the way up to 35% from protein as well. And again, that might change a little bit for you personally as you do more sport, but there's definitely no one size fits all approach in relation to nutrition because your age will impact, your gender, metabolism, even your genetics play a slight role, and of course, even personal preferences. So carbohydrates are foods that are rich in sugars, starches, and fiber. So sugars are most of the really nice food that you guys probably like, but they're pretty quickly digested and converted into energy. We then have starches, which take a bit longer to digest and convert into energy, but still really useful. So think more like whole grains. And then we also have fiber, which lots of food is rich in fiber, and fruit and veg as well. And these can only be partially digested, but that's not a bad thing. And it's actually really good for our gut health. So why do we need carbohydrates? Who's going to say the big one? Energy. Yes, perfect, Charlie. That is the main reason we need carbohydrates is it's an energy source. Your brain also loves glucose. It's its preferred energy source. It can work on other things, but glucose is preference. Fiber also aids in digestion, and as I said, is really good for your gut health. It's going to help you feel full too. And generally, if you're on a carbohydrate deficient diet, you might end up with headaches, fatigue, weakness, and also it might affect your vitamin and mineral deficiencies as well, because a lot of carbohydrates also have vitamins and minerals. We're not just thinking about pasta and rice, but all your veg and stuff are carbohydrates as well. So why is carbohydrate actually so important for exercise? We've mentioned it is the preferred energy source, but let's have a look at how that's broken down. So carbohydrate is usually either blood glucose, which is how it travels in your bloodstream, and it's like the traveling form, let's say. But if we want to store it in our body for energy later on, we store it as something called glycogen. That mostly is stored in your muscle, and then you also store some in your liver as well. So either circulates in our blood and is used a bit more readily as glucose, or we store it for later as glycogen. We then have fats, which the fancy science word for that is lipids. So if anyone ever hears that, it's essentially fat. And that can be used for energy as well. And obviously, naturally, as humans, we actually have a lot more storage space for fats than we do carbohydrates. So it is a very useful source as well, but usually at different exercise intensities, it'll play a different role. So we have these free fatty acids, which are almost the equivalent of glucose, where they'll flow around in your bloodstream. They're a little bit more readily available. And then we have a storage form, which is either adipose tissue, so your fat, or you can actually store fat in your muscle, which a lot of people don't know about. The fancy word for that is what's on the screen, so intramuscular triglycerides, and all that means is in muscle fat. So there's a fancy science word to learn for the day. So we can actually store it there. And you guys, because you train, that's actually like a training adaptation. So your body will actually choose to store fat in your muscle over your adipose tissue because it can use it more efficiently for energy. So it's like a good training adaptation. So that's quite cool in my opinion. Protein should be a backup. We don't really want to use protein for energy because essentially that means we're breaking down our muscle, and we don't want to do that. In some really like extreme endurance sports, it might happen, but in general, we want to keep that to a minimum, and we want to fuel our body with carbohydrates and then use fats. Protein is last resort. So what could you have as a quick carb-rich snack before training? So if you're going to train in the morning before college, or you might be training straight after college, and you've had like a bit of a gap either overnight, or you've had your lunch and then it's now like 4 p.m. and you want to do a session before dinner, you're probably going to need something small just to pick you up. So I thought I'd give you some quick ideas of little things that could be used. So you could have like an energy powder in a drinks bottle. Those Sorry little mini malt loaf bars, don't know if anyone has them, but they are actually so helpful. I think most people associate them with kids' lunch boxes, but I see them in cyclist jerseys all the time. They're great. Flapjacks, apricot or other dried fruit as well. If you're at home, maybe some jam on toast, great quick carbs that you could have before a session. Homemade energy balls, if anyone likes making things themselves, or bananas. These are all just great little snacks that you could have either first thing in the morning before like a proper breakfast, or just to pick you up before and tide you over before dinner. So carbohydrate loading. Don't know if you guys have heard of this before, or if you have, and I kind of wanted to tell you a bit about it and why it might be relevant, and well, if it's going to be relevant. So first of all, what is it? This is where we're purposely going to consume more carbohydrate to try and maximize our body's store of glycogen that I mentioned before, to try and like delay fatigue. We want to try and obviously stay fueled as long as we can and store as much of it in our muscle, maximize those stores. When is it appropriate to carb load though? Do you need to carb load for all of your events or races that you do? And the answer is no, not really. Only when you're kind of going to be going for longer than 2 hours. If you're going for longer than 2 hours, it's worth carb loading, maybe 90 minutes depending on the exercise intensity. But in general, if you have a healthy, balanced diet and you are fueled well day to day, then you will have enough energy to last you around 90 minutes of exercise. If you haven't, then yes, you might feel the effects, but in general, that should be okay. So carb loading is appropriate when the exercise is longer than this. Why should you carb load? Like, what are the benefits? Well, we can use glycogen really efficiently for exercise, and actually maximizing what we're taking in beforehand will have a real beneficial effect on performance. There's been lots of research done all the way. I think it was first kind of founded back in the 1960s, and how we carb load has changed over the years. But actually carb loading as a principle goes, and what is that, 60 years now? I think I'm doing my maths right. It's crazy how long it's been around. And again, this will fuel exercise for around like 90 minutes up to 2 hours. And beyond this, if we don't start consuming fuel, then this is when you'd start to feel fatigue. So that's the theory behind it all. But as I said, there's been a few different techniques over the years, but I'll share with kind of where we're at now and what we know is the most efficient. So ideally, you should aim to start carbohydrate loading 1 to 2 days before your event, before your sportive race, and actually reduce your fiber intake a little bit in line with carb load, because this will actually help prevent gut discomfort. We kind of want things to be moving a bit quicker in this sense, and just digesting quickly and storing energy as fast as we can. You should practice this ahead of key training sessions. So never do something new before a race or event. So if you've got like a long ride at the weekend, you could practice doing a mini carb load and find out what works for you. You should choose simple to digest carbohydrates, as I've just mentioned, and reduce your fiber intake. But think about like high GI sugars. This is where like your jelly babies can be quite helpful and things like that. Everything has a place in your diet. And also even like drinking your carbohydrates as well. It can be much easier to reach higher levels of carbohydrate if you use fluids as well. So you could have smoothies, fruit juices, and also you should try and make breakfast your biggest meal of the day. Don't leave it all to dinner. That's a rookie error that we don't want. In terms of how much, it should be about 8 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Now that might sound a bit complicated, but I'm going to give you an example in a second. So 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of your own body weight is the calculation. I've already said some of this anyway, but choose simple, easy to digest carbs so you can drink them as well. Breakfast, biggest meal of the day. And it also should be a personalized approach. Don't just copy what your mate's doing, because the likelihood is you don't have the same body weight, but even more so, you really don't have the same gut. Like you don't have the same digestive system. So you need to kind of work on what works for you. So as an example of the maths, I put my own kind of strategy that I would do personally. 48 hours doesn't really seem to work for me. I get a bit of gut discomfort, so I know that 24 hours works best for me, regardless of the length of the race, and I go for 10 grams, so in the middle of that little range that I said. So as I weigh 50 kilograms and I'm having 10 grams per kilogram of my body weight, this means I'm going to aim for 500 grams of carbohydrates per day. So that's just an example of the maths in my own personal experience there. But what about stage races? So I don't know if you guys do this at your level yet, but say you go into pro cycling, you might have to do stage events where you're going to be training and racing every day for numerous hours. And it's like, how can you do a carb load every day? It just doesn't work the same. So this is good for like 1-day events, lots of races like that. But if you're trying to fuel for multiple days on end, we have to think about some other considerations as well. So they are slightly different because the nutritional demands are going to be pretty high, and this classic carb loading approach doesn't consider enough protein for optimal recovery in a stage race at an event. And we also want to obviously support muscle recovery. So protein, as we said, we don't want to use it as a fuel source, especially not in cycling, but it ensures that you can recover properly as well. So it's important that protein is also taken into account in a bit more detail to make sure there's quite a constant supply of protein throughout the day. So it's actually quite common in pro cycling that in the bottles, like the hydration bottles, that it won't just be carbohydrate, there'll actually be a form of protein in there as well, in the form of amino acids that are quite easily digestible. So it is thought out throughout these events, but yeah, just in case you guys want to think about stages, and as I said, I'm not sure if at your level you do anything like that. But what does this look like actually? What is a lot of carbohydrate? How many grams is in carbohydrate? How many grams can you get per different thing? So we always say to kind of focus on like pasta, rice, and bread, your easy carbs to digest, and particularly it should be white rice, white bread, because these are lower in fiber. And this is so you can try and maximize the liver and muscle glycogen stores, that storage form of carbohydrate, and start optimally fueled. Other foods that can be used are obviously your vegetables are still going to have carbohydrate in as well, and obviously is going to give you your vitamins and minerals too. But in general, if you had 100 grams of white rice, you'd actually get around 35 grams of carbohydrate. White bread, 45 grams. If you had 100 grams of pasta, it'd be 24 grams. Obviously, you have to include some sweets and Cocoa Pops as well. Cocoa Pops are quite common as someone likes to use, or cereals can be useful in this situation, and oats as well. So that's just to give you an idea of like per 100 grams of each of those products, how much carbohydrate you would get. Should females do the same? I think we have some females on here today, some female riders. So I just thought I'd point out. Now, in sports science, I'm not going to lie, we are lacking female research. I'll be completely honest with you. In sports nutrition, it is changing, but in general, there is a bit of a lack. But I can tell you what we do know so far. So at the moment, we know when we think about carbohydrate loading, there is no gender differences. There's no sex dependency. And as long as you consume enough carbohydrate for your body weight, then it's okay. Because originally there was some research that showed it wasn't as effective, but then they realized they really hadn't taken into account the differences in body weight. So that was back in like the 1960s or 70s, and they were like, oh yeah, we should probably think about that. So we now know that at the moment there is no differences, and as long as you're working towards your body, you should be okay. And also to date, during exercise, there's no evidence to support differences in carbohydrate intake between males and females too. Now, you're probably going to think, what? Because I say a few different numbers in a minute. That's because of body weight. So don't worry, that's essentially why. And in general, females are smaller than males. So what about on the day of a race? Let's think about event day. So you've done like a small carbohydrate load. It might be a 1 day or 2 day. You've practiced it in training. You know what works for you. You've woke up and you need to get ready to go. So the purpose of like your breakfast that day. So if your event starts at 7 a.m., I hate to say it, but we'd actually encourage you to have your final like meal like 2 to 4 hours before, which could be a very early start. So let's hope you don't have to start too early. But it's really vitally important to actually make sure you're well fueled. So you should be topping up your liver glycogen stores in the morning. So it's not going to get stored in your muscle. It is more just about that readily available glycogen, because you're going to be fasted overnight. You know, we've had like a long overnight fast. Your liver glycogen will be depleted. So we want to top that back up to help you stay hydrated and also keep your hunger at bay for the beginning of the event. When? So 2 to 4 hours before, because you need lots of time to digest your food. And it should also be with foods you're familiar with. Can't like emphasize that enough. Never ever try anything new on the day of an event. And then in the last 30 to 60 minutes before your event starts, you could add like a good carbohydrate focused pre-race snack as like a final top up. So this could be like an energy gel, it could be a banana, it could be a flapjack, anything like that. Bananas, dried fruit, all sorts. But that kind of thing you could have like 30 to 60 minutes before as your final top up. And then it's go time. So in general, as I said, for exercise, less than 2.5 hours, over 2.5 hours, it's recommended to be aiming for 80 to 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour. That is a hell of a lot, but that's what the science is telling us. I don't think this works for everyone. So don't worry if you think that's way too much for you. I know I definitely don't consume that much, but scientifically, that is what we are able to consume now. That's where the research is telling us. So thinking about race day nutrition, individualized approach is very, very key here. And the best way to maintain your blood glucose is to provide additional fuel throughout the event, through food, drinks. And, you know, if you wait until you're already hungry to eat, it's probably too late. So it's important to start fueling as soon as you get on the bike. Now, anywhere between 60 and 100 grams is probably what I personally say. It works for most people. And pro males, like in the field at the moment, like the team that I'm working with, we're aiming for up to 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour, which is a lot. So some of them sit around 90, but most 120. They can't naturally do this. They have to train their gut. It's not something we just wake up and be able to take on that amount of carbohydrate, because that's a hell of a lot. If anyone wants a visual idea, I don't know if you guys use energy gels, but most energy gels have like 20 to 30 grams of carbs in, unless it's some of the special ones. So that's like 4 of them per hour for hours on end. So it's a lot to think about. And pro females are targeting around 90 grams per hour. And that's just to take into account the differences in body weight there. So if you are a lighter body weight, you might want to even reduce that further. But especially at your age, guys, you probably want to start right about 60 and then slowly work your way up, because I highly recommend training your gut. And obviously, I don't know how big you all are. I don't know your heights. I don't know your weights. But as a general rule of thumb, this is what the science is now telling us. So how much you should fuel will also depend on your own personal, like your digestive system. So you really do need to gradually build this up and work out what's most tolerable for you. Now, there is an important thing to note. If you are consuming or trying to go over 60 grams per hour, which you might not be, that might be fine for you, you need to consider having 2 different types of carbohydrate. So this is because the use, so I've said the oxidation, that just means use. It's a fancy science word for utilization and how your body's going to use something. So another fun word to learn today in science. is it's limited to how fast your body can do it. So a good way of visualizing this, again, I love my little weird visualizations for you guys to think about. So think about your energy, like your cells. Let's think of a little circle in a cell. And if you want to take glucose into the cell for energy, it can't go in on its own. It has to be transported. So we've got loads of little cars on the edge of your cell and they can go in, but they can only work at a maximum speed of 60 grams per hour. So let's say 60 mile per hour. Can't go any faster than that. They're limited. So you've got all these little cars working. So how do we then go above 60 grams per hour, like up to 90 or 120? It's not going to work. But what we can do is actually add a different type of carbohydrate. So this is glucose. You can also add another type called fructose, which is quite commonly known if you ever look at sports nutrition products. If you buy any, like Science and Sport have it, you might see it advertised where it says dual source carbohydrate. This is what they're on about. Now, the thing is, the fructose has a different transporter. It doesn't need a car to get into the cell. It needs a motorbike, and motorbike can weave through the traffic. So it can work together and they can work alongside each other to enter the cell. So you've got all of these cars and motorbikes all traveling in at the same time. So there's my weird little visual for you guys to think about it, but they can work alongside each other. So you can actually process more carbohydrate. So if you ever see a sports nutrition product, whether it be an energy gel or powder, which says dual source carbohydrate, this is what it's talking about. It'll also probably say some numbers on it with a ratio of either 2 to 1 or 1 to 0.8. 1 to 0.8 is more what people are going towards now. I'm not going to explain all the science behind it, but basically they realize one ratio is better than the other. Long story short of lots of research there. And so most products are leaning towards this new ratio. So you can see this one from Voom I put there is 1 to 0.8. This one by Sturker, 1 to 0.8. I think Science and Sport is using 1 to 0.8. Can't remember for Precision Fuel and Hydration and Morton off the top of my head. But yeah, most people are using this ratio now. So hopefully when you're looking at things now, you've got a bit of background knowledge as to what it all means. So fueling different types of races. So if you're having a bit of a hilly ride and you've got a hilly race ahead, lots of elevation and climbing, we actually tend to say using like gels is a bit easier because the format is a bit easier to get down. Now, personally, gels might not work for you and you might prefer bars. That's also okay. But yeah, we'd say focus on whatever's easiest for you to consume. And again, thinking about this optimal ratio if you're trying to aim for higher amounts. If you've got a pretty flat event, that's quite short and sharp, well, if it's too short you won't need to fuel at all if you fueled well beforehand, but for those flat events where you do need to fuel, you might want to try something a bit different and try some energy bars, or like rice cakes are really popular in cycling as well, and then just have gels when you're really like trying to push the pedal down at the end and trying to hit hard with the hammer. That's when you might just want gels that are easier to consume. Now, if you've got time trials and you do lots of time trials, usually these are quite short and sharp, so they're very unlikely to need fuel during most of the time. Obviously, there are the odd exception if you're doing, like, I don't know if you guys even do 100-mile TTs, but some people do. They obviously might need fueling during. But most of the time, we're just thinking about aerodynamics, so to try and stay in position as much as you can, as uncomfortable. Whether you guys have even thought about this yet, but in the future, maybe when you're a bit older or racing, you might want to consider caffeine or beta-alanine. That's two common supplements that people use before time trials, but that takes practice, and also wouldn't recommend using it just on its own before, like if you've never used it in training before. And at your age, you might not have been introduced to it yet, but I'm just letting you know for future. You might have been introduced to it. I have no idea, but there's a bit of a knowledge for you. Recovery from racing though over multiple days, if you do have like a stage event where you might be racing on the Saturday, Sunday or Friday as well, who knows, recovery needs to start as soon as you cross that finish line. Your focus should shift, and you've done that race now. Try and forget about the result, good or bad. You need to think about the next day. Don't just celebrate or wallow. Focus on tomorrow and start thinking about your carbohydrates and protein, and think about the next day, which is harder said than done. Easier said than done sometimes, because if you're winning, you just want to go and celebrate. And then if you're losing, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to think about tomorrow, but try and focus. And also, just as a note, I've not really touched on hydration much today because obviously there's too much to cover, but I am going to touch a little bit on hydration and recovery, and the principles are still kind of the same. So we're moving on to principle of recovery now and general fueling for actually adaptation. So you do need time to adapt to training, which is why sleep's so important. And the overloading principle that you're following day to day is your body is going to get stressed, it's going to tire, but then it recovers and then it goes through this cycle all over again. But the recovery part is pretty essential, because if you don't do that, then you might get ill, you might end up with injuries. Generally, you're not going to respond to training as efficiently and it's going to feel more difficult. The fresher you are, the better chance you're actually going to adapt and improve. And recovery is maximized when your fatigue is reduced, which is where we take it back to being in the most normal physiological state before you did the training stimulus. So you're trying to prevent fatigue, and both nutrition and sleep are going to play a really key role in supporting your recovery. So what are the signs that you're not recovering very well? So you might see a sudden drop in body weight. You might see a sudden increase in your resting heart rate. I don't know if any of you monitor that, but it's just another sign. You might have low mood again, or an inability to respond to relaxation techniques. So if you're someone who likes to read a book or watch TV, but you're fidgeting and you can't concentrate, it might be that your recovery isn't very strong. You might have poor sleep quality as well, and actually just not feel like you're getting a good night's sleep. And again, like low energy consistently. So use my little low battery modes symbol there again. So these are the signs that you might not be recovering very well. So what are the 4 R's of recovery to consider? So rest is the first, refuel, rebuild, and rehydrate. So they are your 4 fundamental steps to thinking about recovery. Your training isn't finished till you've considered recovery, in my opinion. So rest, why is sleep so important? Good sleep can prevent heart-related problems. Obviously, we don't want those. Increase your cognitive function, actually help you concentrate, improve your post-workout recovery as well, actually make your energy stores recover as well, so you're better. Your nervous system, so thinking about all the chemical messengers that are sending everything around your body to tell it what to do, all of that has time to recover when you sleep. Could also help with your metabolism and just like weight control in general. Immune health is going to help you stay well as much as we can, as having poor sleep or a lack of sleep can make you more susceptible to illness, which isn't ideal. I wish we actually needed less sleep than we do as humans, but unfortunately it's not the case. And sleep is actually really important for you guys as athletes in particular, as it gives you more of an opportunity to recover from your training and also preparing for the next day. Most people are recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep. But it's actually thought that athletes might need a bit more, especially if you are recovering from an injury, or if you're in like quite an intense training block, or have been on a training camp, or also if you've competed, which is ironic really, because after a competition, most people don't actually sleep very well. But physiologically, we are supposed to need more sleep. So going on back into the nutrition bit, that was just a little bit of background on why sleep's important. What nutrition is going to disrupt sleep? So diet's quite high in fat, might negatively influence total sleep time. If you have like too little calories, again, being in like that low energy availability state, that can affect your sleep quality. Not having enough fiber, having too much saturated fats, which is saturated fats means your bad fats essentially, which we should be only having around 10% of our diet. If you have too much sugar, that could also link to sleep that doesn't feel very restorative. Not eating enough carbohydrates, fat, or protein, so again, not eating enough in general is coming up here that can make your sleep quality. And both caffeine and alcohol, and although most of you might, I don't know how old, again, don't know the exact age range, some of you might not be old enough to drink yet, but you probably will be in the next few years. Unfortunately, it does affect your sleep. It actually can make you feel like you fall asleep quicker, but the sleep quality is awful. So just as a note there, and caffeine as well. In a general rule of thumb, caffeine, I think you're not meant to consume after 2 p.m, which is mad because I know some people who can have an espresso before bed, but there we go. It will affect your sleep quality. So try to avoid those later on in the day if you are either, as I said, don't know the exact age range here, but if you are looking at either of them. But more importantly, how can we enhance sleep with nutrition instead? So there are things that we can do to try and help better promote us getting a good night's sleep. So diet will influence, so CNS means central nervous system. So again, thinking about how all our chemical messengers are functioning, the production of serotonin and melatonin, and they might be very foreign words to you right now, and that's okay. They're basically like chemical messengers that help us sleep. So we can influence how these chemical messengers to help us sleep are produced just through our diet. So having a high carbohydrate diet may actually result in short sleep latencies. And what that means is how long it takes you to fall asleep. So latency, again, is a fancy term for how long it takes you to fall asleep. You might have a diet high in protein, and that's going to improve your sleep quality. So protein is going to help you recover. It's going to help you sleep. All in all, don't forget about your protein. You could have something called tryptophan, which is an amino acid. So it is found naturally in foods that are high in protein. And this can, again, help how fast you fall asleep and also your sleep quality again. Melatonin may decrease your sleep onset time, which you're going to get through all of these different things anyway in your diet. And some micronutrients, there's been a bit of research, might actually be quite important for sleep, as they have an involvement in how the brain regulates sleep. So in general, as I said before, you'll be hitting all your micronutrient goals if you're having a balanced diet with lots of colour and variety. So let's just think about that and making sure we hit those colourful goals. So we've kind of looked at a little bit of rest, a bit of a whistle-stop tour into sleep. And now we're going to look at refueling and rebuilding instead. So what about carbohydrates for recovery? And sorry if I'm going through this quite fast, because I've realized we're already on 46 minutes. And yeah, I definitely probably put too much in this. So let's go. Carbohydrates for recovery. So there is like general carbohydrate guidelines that you can use to match to your exercise that you've been doing. So if it's like low intensity and maybe drill work, it's 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight. And I know that's that complicated calculation again, but once you've got your head around it and you know your body weight, you'll be able to go away and work out all of these calculations. And that goes all the way up to extreme with 8 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight. So after this, after exercise, so when you're first recovering, the recommendations are 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per hour for 4 hours. Again, complicated maths, but once you know your body weight, you will get there. Then you just match the activity needs as above for the day. So the first 4 hours are quite important, and then it will reduce down a little bit. So, but this isn't always feasible. That's a lot of carbohydrate. If you do sit down and do the maths, you might go, whoa, that's way too much. I can't consume that. But if you have protein alongside it, this will actually really help the process. So just having carbohydrate and protein together, a ratio of like 4 to 1 is what they recommend. It's going to help you both recover, replenish your energy stores, and generally help your muscle recovery. It's also going to really, really help if you've got lots of events on different days in a row, and you're trying to make sure you're recovered for those too. So protein for recovery, mentioned protein quite a lot already, but it's a macronutrient for a reason. I think everyone thinks of protein just for muscle. It's all they think about, but it has so many other roles in the body. It will help your metabolic reactions. It maintains like fluid balance. All your antibodies that help your immune system, they're all proteins. So it's going to help your immune system. Obviously, it can be used for energy as a backup, but it's just a really cool thing. A lot of your body, I think every cell in the human body actually contains protein. So don't just think about it for muscle, think about it for quality of life in general. But most recommendations do vary a little bit. I've got a little table coming up on how much protein you might need. One thing to think about is there's one amino acid. So amino acids are what proteins are made of, essentially, and they are the building blocks. So every protein has like an amino acid sequence and they all equal each other. And there's one in particular that's very good for building muscle, and that is leucine. So again, if you look at sports nutrition supplements, some protein supplements, they might say on the packaging, this contains leucine or this contains 3 grams of leucine. That's because they're trying to show that off, because that's what's optimal for building muscle. MPS there, you might be wondering what that stands for. Sorry, so that's muscle protein synthesis. That means muscle protein growth is what that stands for. But adding carbohydrate can help decrease muscle breakdown as well. So they do really work hand in hand. So it's not about just thinking carbohydrates for energy. Carbohydrates also help recovery too, alongside protein. But for females, for the females in the room, the research is keeping up a little bit. It's actually starting to come through, and you've got a slightly different recommendation. So the recommendation in general for males there, but for females, it's a little bit different, and it's consumed in a few different meals per day, which I think I've actually got repeated on another slide in a second as a summary. And also to consider your protein requirements might be slightly different at different times of the menstrual cycle. And if you want to speak to me about that afterwards, please feel free to drop me a message and I can explain that in a little bit more detail, because it depends how regular your menstrual cycle is and stuff as well. So how much protein do you need? Now, these are all based on adults in particular, but I thought I'd include these rather than child-based ones because you are all pretty much adults at this point, being like college age. So in general, we have general recommendations that are recommended to the public who say you don't do much exercise. You're recommended to have 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. I've put as an example, so this is how much protein per day it would be if you weighed 65 kilograms. So I've almost put an example of a human here. So that's the recommendation. That's the human weight of protein per day. And that's just where that information came from if anyone wants to read up more on it. So if you do a lot of sport and you're male, it's 1.4 to 2 grams, and that would equate to 91 to 130 grams in a day. Females, a bit less there. And then elderly individuals, I thought I'd just include this because it's quite cool. And protein requirements shoot back up. So they're actually way higher than general recommendations. So when you go home and you see your nan and granddad, tell them to be eating more protein, because we want to make sure that they're not losing any muscle mass. Because unfortunately, naturally, as we age, we do lose muscle mass. It's a very sad thing. Very sad thing. So when should you be consuming protein? Now, most of you probably just think post-exercise, as soon as I've trained. But we're moving away from that now. It used to be thought that we had a really strict anabolic window of 30 to 60 minutes, but we've kind of gone, hang on a minute, we actually need protein for much longer than this and over the full 24-hour period. So consuming regular protein amounts of protein after training is good, but also throughout the whole day. So you've got a continuous supply of amino acids, and your body's going to actually keep building new proteins from these. So the recommendations for males versus females in general is to think about per day. So 4 meals a day with 0.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per meal. Again, that calculation will all come through at one point and you go, I've mastered it now, Emily. And then females is slightly more, so 4 to 5 meals a day at 0.3. So a few more meals, but slightly less. Obviously, I say meals, these can be snacks as well, because obviously most of us have 3 main meals a day, but you could also have like a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack, or even a pre-bedtime snack as well. And trying to find stuff that has protein sources in, because a lot of us tend to just go for carbohydrate snacks. We all go to the biscuit tin when ideally we should be having something with a bit of protein and instead maybe some like Greek yogurt with some fruit, things like that. So protein and sleep, just a little note on this. Even if you consume protein in your evening meal, it can still, or after exercise, it can be quite low. So again, that fancy word, muscle protein growth basically is going to be low if we just consume it after exercise. So having it before bed can be really helpful. It can increase the amount of amino acids that we have in our blood and actually help us rebuild and recover overnight. So there's actually a lot of dietary strategies that say if we have a pre-bed protein snack of around 20 grams of protein, this can be really, really helpful in maintaining our growth. Obviously, not everyone wants to do that, but just thought I'd point it out. So which foods are high in protein? You might be going, Emily, I don't have a clue where to start. Well, obviously there's plant-based and meat-based sources. So if you are plant-based, there's some examples here too. So if you've got like chicken and turkey, your general meats, and eggs are a great one. So if you're vegetarian, and you can still have eggs. But don't forget that even like pasta contains protein. Everyone forgets pasta does. But edamame beans are a great shout. You can have those roasted as a snack. And same with chickpeas. You can get roasted chickpeas with like salt on or paprika. They're really nice as a snack as well. You have some peanut, red lentils, and again, Greek yogurt is on there too. But I've put all the values per 100 grams. So you'd have to have 100 grams of that product to meet that goal. But there is differences between plant-based and meat-based sources of protein, but in general, it's not as different as we once thought. So it used to be thought that one's complete and one's incomplete, and that's not quite necessarily true anymore. What we actually know is that all of them provide amino acids, just not all at the same amount that the human body like matches. So more meat-based sources match the human body more closely. Plant-based sources, it's a bit more difficult because you have to have more of it, but it's still very, very achievable. So if you're a plant-based athlete, don't worry, you can get your protein still. Do you need to supplement? A quick one on supplements here. If you struggle to meet your protein requirements, you might consider them. Lots of us have protein shakes and have seen them advertised everywhere. It's like almost they're not even considered a supplement anymore because they're so common. But I've just thought I'd put a few pros and cons. So they are very convenient on the go if you're pretty busy or if you're traveling to college. A lot of us feel like we can't stomach a meal post-exercise as well, so also helpful. And they're usually optimized for sport performance. Like I mentioned that amino acid leucine before, that might be added in. So you don't have to think about food sources of it because it's already optimized for you to have really easily. And that's really helpful. Cons, they can be expensive. They don't all taste very nice. So some are better than others. And the quality also varies greatly too. So it does take a bit of research to find out which one works best for you, which one's affordable, but it's a what suits you. If you want to use completely whole foods, then you can, but if you want to supplement, you also can. You just need to do a bit of research first. Little note on fats. We're not going to focus on this too much because we've covered way too much anyway, but fats are still important because they can help with hormone production and inflammation. So all your muscle soreness can actually be helped by fats as well. So to reduce inflammation and enhance your recovery, you should still try and get some fats in your diet, but mostly you want to focus on your healthy fats. So your monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So these are like flax, hemp seeds, walnuts, cold water fish, omega-3s, using like olive oils. If you do any cooking and you're not just relying on your parents, then olive oil is a great thing to invest in. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it for health. Ensure you're getting enough essential fatty acids. That's like your omega-3. Don't know if anyone takes an omega-3 supplement, but if you don't like fish, it might be worth looking into. And in general, you should look to consume around 20 to 35% of your calories from fat. So it is essential for your health to actually have fats in your diet. So we've looked at all of them now. And as I said, little note on hydration, because I've realized I'm going over massively. So sorry, definitely you should have given me more of a brief. Then maybe I would have been able to, I shouldn't have been given free rein, is the moral of the story. So rehydration, both water and sodium do need to be replaced because you lose sodium when you sweat. It's has anyone ever noticed they're quite salty on their skin after exercise? That is sodium, that is salt. And the general recommendations are to consume 1.5 litres for each kilogram of your body weight lost during training. So the best way to work out your kind of sweat rate is to actually weigh yourself before and after training, but also take into account any food or fluid that you consumed during that as well. But you can actually kind of work out how much weight you've lost because that will be fluid, and some obviously you lose through urine too. You do not need to have all this in one go though. Good rule of thumb is have like a 500 ml water bottle and try and consume that as soon as you finish or during, and then just consume regularly after that. How do you know if you're hydrated or not? It's simple as look at your urine. So dehydration will decrease your blood volume, and that actually makes it harder for your heart to pump blood around the body, which is then actually going to make it harder for all these nutrients that you're eating to get around the body because they're not being taken in your blood. So think about the blood as almost like it's going to be a little bit more watery if you're hydrated, so it can move a lot quicker. And if you want to check, use a simple scale like this. You can find loads of them online just to see your hydration status, and that's for both before and after training. Finally getting to the end here, guys. Sorry, thanks for bearing with me. So take-home messages from this presentation, I hope you're going to take away, is that energy balance is the foundation of all your nutritional priorities. that's what your main focus should be, is actually getting in the right amount of energy that you need, taking into account exercise and just day-to-day movement. Second, carbs are king for training and racing, but they also play a pretty big role in recovery and replenishing your energy stores. Protein is pretty essential for rebuilding and repairing muscle tissue to adapt to the training demands as well. Like, you want to actually make the most out of your training, and that's going to take a bit of protein. How much carb and protein you consume will depend on your body weight. So again, don't just copy what your friend's doing. Take into account what your personal needs are. And training isn't finished until you've taken recovery into account. That's a big one for me anyway. Finally, thanks for listening. And have you got any questions? And yeah, I think I definitely need a brief to stick to next time, Joe.
No, thank you so much, Emily. I'm aware if anybody needs to drop off at 8,
Yeah,
by all means
sorry.
do. No, not at all. I mean, there was so much there.
Probably too much.
I've been hanging. Yeah, fantastic. We will go until 8:15. If you need to drop off, of course, you're free to do so. We're recording this for that very reason. Like, Emily jammed everything, which is what we were hoping for, because it's precious time with you. So really, you did a great job. We've recorded this, so I reckon some of you are going to just want to revisit some particular moments. By all means, this is for you. We'll share it. You'll have the link available so you can revisit. But I think let's go to 8:15. We'd love to open up the floor for questions, just because, like, the people you're working with, I know that's pretty awesome for our athletes on with us right now. If we could stop sharing, and we'll have, if you're feeling brave, people, and we've already got some brave people on screen, I can see you now, which is awesome. Feel free to pop your camera on. Again, you don't have to. It's the evening. Be free. I'm going to stop talking. Should we open the floor? If you can do the hand, like if you see on the bottom, the raise hand, if we do that one. And if you want to type the message, I or Emily can be your spokesperson and say your question out loud. But let's open the floor for questions. Over to you all, lovely people. Let's go.
And also, if anyone's feeling shy, oh, sorry, I think I spoke over something. I was going to say, if anyone's feeling shy, you can message me afterwards as well, but go for it, Luke.
I was just going to ask about, like, supplementation. Like, what are some good supplements to take, and where do you get them from?
So one, it'll depend on your personal needs. So I can't say like a really like there's a specific list that everyone should have. The only ones I'd consider looking at in general is vitamin D, especially in winter months. But just check the amount recommended, because again, I don't know all your individual ages, so I would still check that. Omega-3, if you don't have any fish, is a good one as well. Female athletes on the call, if might be worth looking at iron, but I would recommend getting that tested at a GP as well. But a lot of us do tend to be iron deficient, and if you're vegetarian and vegan as well, that also might be worth looking at. So they're like 3 key ones that will help both health and performance. And then other ones will depend on individual circumstances. Like I said, protein supplements are really good for convenience for some people. Caffeine and beta-alanine can be useful for like time trial performance, but again, only do that if you practiced it beforehand. And again, check with whoever your coach is that that's suitable for you at your age, because obviously I'm not your coach, and I also don't know what you guys are doing day to day and stuff. So I can't recommend too much, but I think that's probably what I'd go for as a general recommendation. So focus on the health supplements first that can do more. We have had some questions in the chat box as well. So how do vegetarian riders meet their protein demands? So mostly I would say the key to that is forward planning, because it is a little bit more difficult to meet protein demands if you're vegetarian or vegan, but it is not impossible, and lots of riders are. But I would just say to forward plan and actually think about it. So people who meal prep tend to do quite well with this, because they actually can think like, what is my protein source in this meal, rather than just reaching for the cupboard at the end of the day, where we just chuck anything in. But even using like, I have a good recipe that's like fancy beans on toast that uses like butter beans, things like that, where you can mix it up. There's so many different proteins out there that people forget about. And so yeah, and think outside the box. Think about using like beans and legumes are a great way of like filling up dishes. Lentils in like the equivalent of a shepherd's pie, but you can also have black beans. You could anything. But yeah, forward planning would be my most. I can share the recipe, yes. I'll have to try and send it afterwards. It is actually, if anyone does want it, it's on my Instagram, so I can just share it through that as well. Will eating a protein snack before bed impacts on sleep as the, sorry, give me 1 second. I have a cat scratching at my door and I don't want it to ruin my carpet, you know, needs must. So will protein snacks, and now she's come onto the call. Will protein snacks before bed impact sleep as the body will be time to digest it? Probably an individual circumstance there, and depending on your own digestion, I would say like an hour before sleep. I probably wouldn't go like 10 minutes before you're trying to go to bed. Maybe give it an hour so you got a bit of digestion time. If you obviously find it really uncomfortable having protein before bed, then that's obviously going to impact your sleep and impact your recovery in a different way. So it's not worth it. But if you can have like a protein snack, again, Greek yogurt with some berries is a great like sweet treat in the evening where it feels a bit sweeter. You can get some protein that way as maybe your dessert after dinner. And then hopefully still have a good night's sleep too. So that's a good way of thinking about it. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Hello.
So is there anything to be said for kind of eating too much sugar impacting on your health and your kind of teeth and everything like that? Or is the exercise that we do enough to sort of offset that?
So that'll again depend on a few factors, because how much sugar is too much training is the, you know, the amount, because in theory, yes, it can offset to a certain extent. And yeah, we do need sugars as an athlete. We are not the general population, but it still can have a negative effect, especially on like things like your teeth and stuff. I know dentists can be, they're not always the biggest fan of energy gels, but we also need to get the carbs down us in training. That's the most efficient way. So I don't really have like a really specific answer there, because there's too many, it depends if like on the training load, and yeah, how much sugar is too much in one person's opinion could be very different in another. I would say that opting for more natural sugars is probably better as well. So like honey is a great natural sugar as well. Some people even like to make their own energy gels using like maple syrup and stuff instead of like more, what's the word, like lots of like sugary sweets where you're chewing on it more as well. That might affect your, you know, your teeth. But yeah, natural sugars is a good way to go too, and you get so much sugar in fruit as well. But there again, there will be like never have any fruit again. No one's going to say that.
Okay,
So
thank you.
sorry, that wasn't a great answer, Nathan.
It's all right, no worries.
What would you say is an ideal meal to have just before bed for supper? A balanced one, Charlie, to be honest. So yeah, think about your carbs, protein, your healthy fats. I can even say what I had for dinner tonight, which I think was fairly balanced. So I had wholemeal rice with salmon, so my oily fish, and then a load of roasted vegetables. So it was like asparagus, green beans, all of that roasted in garlic and olive oil. So again, olive oil is full of healthy fats, and that's pretty balanced. And this evening I probably will actually go have some Greek yogurt and berries, because I've spoke about it a lot now, that it's on my mind. So yeah, thinking about balance. So carbs, protein, healthy fats. Obviously sometimes as well you're going to have some unhealthy stuff, and that's okay. Just to reiterate that we are all human beings, and food is also culture and celebration and social. And for anyone who struggles to get that balance right, and sorry, I know this is going off on a tangent, but just thought I'd mention, who struggles with like, how do I eat healthy all the time? Think of your life as like an 80-20 approach. So 80% of the time you should be aiming to consume nutritious foods that are going to be beneficial for your health and performance. But the other 20% of the time you can have foods that are slightly less nutritious or that you enjoy, and that's okay as well. So thinking about that balance, you know, you're not just athletes, you're human beings. And I say that to all of my athletes as well that I work with in the cycling team. Yeah. Anyone else? Said.
Oh, well, I'll just do one more. Like in terms of for a cross race, so 1 hour, you said like carb load isn't necessarily needed. So what would you do instead of that?
But just focus on breakfast. Oh, well, depending on what time of day. So obviously I'm assuming there that your race is in the morning, but if it wasn't in the morning, it'd still just be that main meal beforehand. So 3 to 4 hours, focus on just having like a good enough breakfast that's going to provide you with lots of carbohydrates. So it might be like oats or something. It might be toast if it's breakfast. I always say oats with fruit is a good one if it's 3 to 4 hours before. I know you've got plenty of time. But even toast and jam can be helpful as well. But then having that like that snack beforehand, that 30 to 60 minutes, it might be an energy gel. You might have an energy powder in your bottle that you're sipping at throughout the morning so that you've got that constant little like flow of energy coming in. It might be a banana, but yeah, focusing more on nutrition on the day rather than the day before if it's just an hour. Cool. Any questions from the girls as well? Because I feel like most of the boys have spoke up, but either way, just if anyone is wanting to message afterwards, like again, just feel free. I will just put I did have my contact details on the slide, so I'll just repeat them in my in the chat box too. So, and here's the cat again. So that's my Instagram handle, and I'll also put my email address as well, just so if anyone has any follow-ups. There we go. So hopefully that'll be helpful anyway, but sorry I've kept everyone so late as well.
Actually, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Not really too much relating to nutrition, but how did you get into this line of work?
That's a great question. So kind of really persevered. No, I've been in, I'd say I'm actually a bit older than I look sometimes. I don't know. No, no, I was actually in university for like 8 years, if I'm honest, which was quite a long time. So I did an undergraduate degree, then a master's degree, and then a PhD in metabolism and nutrition. So I just never left university for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I did research, spent a lot of time under a microscope. And then after that, I was a lecturer in nutrition for 4 going on 5 years. And I also did a lot of work alongside that. I did a lot of consultancy for different people, including the work I've done with science and sport as well. God knows what else. And then it came the role itself with DSM. I'll be honest, it wasn't advertised. It was I was recommended for the role by someone who I used to do research with, who actually used to be the head of nutrition at GBCT as well. So everyone knows everyone. He actually recommended me for the role, and they got in touch and they were like, would you consider this? And yeah, it kind of a mixture of networking and different experience and stuff. But yeah, I studied sports science at university and then specialized in nutrition and physiology. I also do a lot of sport myself, so I would just say I love being around it, so it's great.
Very nice. Well, thank you.
One new message too. I was just saying thank you. There you go. I think we're rounding up. Yeah, people are starting to say thanks. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys, as well, because I really love speaking to people about nutrition, if you can't tell. I'm really passionate about nutrition education. So thanks for listening to me ramble on about it all, because yeah, I enjoy it myself. So
Thank you so much, Emily. Yeah, so for us, for British Cycling, like it's fantastic to be working with you. And for everybody on the call, like this is the first of a series that we want to have for you. We've been speaking to some of your fantastic coaches and tutors to kind of talk about what other areas. Emily, we just thought was like straight off, this was a no-brainer, but please get in touch with your coaches and tutors. If there are some key areas you're like, do you know what, we'd love to know more about that, because we've got awesome friends at British Cycling that we'd love to invite to join us for the series in 2025. Now's the time. Have a chat, and then we'll kind of build a series for you. But Emily, what a kickstart! Thank you so much.
okay.
Yeah, and by all means, like as Emily said, she's awesome. She's shared her contact details. Enjoy that contact. This is the whole thing, like Nathan, your question about like how did you get in touch, this point in your life, make those connections, enjoy it, play with the networks that you're making, and yeah, don't be shy. That would be my big tip for you. Like, as you're in your journey already, which is really exciting, but just be brave, and thanks for sharing, Emily. Really, really awesome.
I think I have a whole session I've done on career pathways as well. So you never know, if that comes in demand, I can talk you through that another time, Nathan. Because yeah, I took a lot of risks, I've got to say, to get where I am. It wasn't all straightforward. So
Being bold, that is it. You gotta do it, even if you don't feel like it sometimes. But yeah, if that's an area, by all means, let's kind of build that in for you into the series. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. Wishing you all the best. Keep hydrating, keep eating all the good stuff, and yeah, keep going for it. Really proud of you guys as our DiSE students, and yeah, look forward to staying in touch with you all. Take care. Have an awesome Christmas. We'll be in touch again. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now. See you guys.